Back to school now with a bit of a history lesson involving the legendary Golf GTI. Now, you may well remember when it was born, it was a bit of a lean, mean fighting machine, but then, for no apparent reason, it soon became a bit lardy and fat.
And then the last one got brilliant again, and we were all overjoyed, so much so that we here at Fifth Gear gave it a Car of the Year award, which is kind of like a motoring Oscar. Yeah,
but now there's a brand new one out, and what we want to know is, can it keep up with the current hot hatch crowd?
The world of hot hatches has changed monstrously in the last few months. You can now buy a spectacular Renault Megane with a roll cage and a spine-tingling Ford Focus with more power than a Porsche.
Both landmark cars that have redefined how hot a hatch can actually get. So I've been waiting to see how Volkswagen, the originators of hot hatchery in the first place, are going to retaliate. And here it is, the new Golf GTI. And it looks a little bit like the last one. You might think that they put the car through some sweaty, violent, Rocky-style training montage. But no, VW bosses told their engineers to make the car 10 better, no more, no less. So it's got 10 more horsepower, 10% lower emissions, 10% better fuel economy. 10. A lowly 10. Volkswagen's one of the biggest, most influential car companies on this planet. So why not make it 50?
For that reason, I found my very first meeting with the 22 grand GTI incredibly average. I'd excitedly rushed to France, where the car was introduced to the press so I could drive it as soon as possible. But its familiarity, coupled with perfect roads, made the whole experience desperately underwhelming. What I needed to do was test the car back in Blighty, where the roads are less than perfect, and find myself a legendary adventure befitting of the legendary GTI.
Along the plane, I did a little bit of reading, and I've got myself a new hero, well, anti-hero, the highwayman Dick Turpin. He rode a horse from here, Epping Forest, near London, to York in one day. I'm going to do the same in that, not on it.
Turpin's journey was all about giving himself an alibi. How could he possibly have murdered someone in London if he'd been in York the same day, officer? I want to retrace his steps in the Golf because, for good reason, I reckon today Dick Turpin would drive a GTI.
Turpin's horse was called Black Bess, who, according to legend, was the most perfect nag in the land. She was muscular, athletic and fast, but subtle and beautiful. If the GTI is going to compete with Bess, it's got to do all of the above.
Black Bess was the only horse capable of making this 200-mile journey in time. And with 0 to 62 taking 6.9 seconds, the Golf should deliver me to York in a similarly fleet-footed manner. Now, while the new GTI may only be 1 mile per hour quicker than the last model, with a top speed of 149, it's still quicker than a horse, and more refined. It's one of the few cars that manages to be fun on twisty B-roads, but a relaxed high-speed cruiser too. What Dick really needed was probably the A1. 3 lanes, sometimes 4, nice straight tarmac, from London all the way up to the north. Things were going well. I wasn't saddle sore, and I was nearing York.
Handily, it's going to involve a bit of city driving, and that's one of the few times that I'd probably want to buy a GTI with the DSG double-clutch gearbox. It's a £1,305 option, so it's not cheap, but it's good if you do a lot of stoppy-starting. It's extremely smooth, and it's extremely good, but that's better. The 6-speed manual box on this car is just so good and satisfying, you just don't need to spend that kind of money.
Turpin's plans didn't quite work out, and he was eventually caught and executed for his crimes. Black Bess disappeared, presumably turned into some sort of 18th century glue.
But what about the legend of him riding all the way from Epping up here to York in one day on one horse? That's probably more of a myth. But one thing that's for sure is that the Golf GTI is a legend, and it's a living legend, and it's better today than it ever has been.
Well, look at that. Volkswagen have gone and got it right again.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Johnny. You know, I've driven a few of those GTIs now, and they are currently the best all-round hot hatch you can buy.
Absolutely. God love them.